welcome to Solar Power World Solar Speaks Live, powered by Unirac at Intersolar North America 2015 here. I'm Kathie Zipp, and today we are speaking with Bob Magyar,
Kathie.
a Senior Business Development Executive for the Varta Storage Group. Bob founded one of the first small business automatic battery backup companies in the mid-2000s and is well-versed in all aspects of battery storage technology. So I look forward to discussing the state of battery storage with him today. And with that, thank you so much again for being here, Bob.
And Kathie, thank you for inviting me and an opportunity to speak a little bit about the business and about the industry.
Very interesting industry right now. But I do always like to hear how people came to be in the solar industry. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into this sector?
Sure, absolutely. So I have, for the majority of my career, have been in sales and business development, and was very fortunate to start with some of the bigger companies in the industry. I worked for the Hubble Corporation for a number of years. A lot of basic block and tackle products, lighting, wiring devices. Then had an opportunity to go to work for GTE Sylvania and was involved in lighting and with their electrical equipment group. So I really, most of my background was in growing up in, if you will, the traditional two-step distribution, manufacturer to wholesaler to contractors, and that's been the majority of my background. In the last, basically now 12 years, I've been working pretty much exclusively in the solar, renewable energy portion of the business, and the battery storage business has kind of come along as a natural part of that. I have done large consulting projects for BP Solar when they entered into their first agreement with the Home Depot for self-furnished and install of solar modules at the residential and small business levels, and have basically been helping clients on a private industry basis in solar and battery storage for about the last 10 years or so.
So you really are a veteran in the industry. 10 years is quite a long time in solar here. So.
It is big. I think the greatest thing about it is the opportunity to work for big companies and see how large corporations do things and understand that process, and then to work for startups where the world is completely different, right? And then also to work for, and this is kind of where I focus today, I focused on businesses that are either divisions or standalone in renewable energy on or about, let's say, $25 to $50 million. Typically companies with really good engineering, really good technology, a little bit more of a struggle to figure out where to go in the market and what are their best opportunities for the acceptance of their product in the renewable energy market.
And you're the man that helps them find that, huh?
We do a lot of basic building blocks that I learned early on, so we'll do a lot of business case analysis. We'll do, probably the most important is price of technology to market acceptance.
Sure.
So there's a lot of really good things out there, but then they're going to work, but are they going to work from a standpoint of, as we say, the economic argument? Are they aligned to electric utility regulations? Are they disruptive? What does the economic argument ultimately look like as to why a particular client would go ahead and move further into the area of either solar or energy efficiency, which is fairly straightforward. LED lighting has been a big success. People are now over that curve. And that kind of brings us today to the emergence of battery storage and what people are looking for to get out of those technologies.
Absolutely. So as you said, storage has really become quite a buzzword, not only in solar, but in other industries like vehicles and consumer electronics. So why is storage more important now than ever?
So we'll answer that on a couple of different levels. Let's start with the solar industry first, because that's one of the easiest ones for us to keep in historical perspective. So the largest complaint levied against solar, this is now going back maybe, let's say within the last 15 to 20 years, was twofold. It's too expensive and it's an intermittent power source. Well, the too expensive part kind of took care of itself. There was this really nice decline curve in costs for solar modules as more polysilicon powder came into the market and more larger manufacturers came in and really stabilized supply. But there was never an answer per se for it as an intermittent power source. Great during the day, as the sun goes down, less and less power, no power at night.
Sure.
And that was by and large a very, very effective counter argument to gains for the solar industry for many, many years. So what's really emerged over the last, I would say, 5 years is the general recognition and the advances in everything from lead acid batteries and then of course lithium ion batteries, where lithium now has basically a longer power curve, much longer life than lead acid. So as lithium ion has come into the markets overall, certainly it's now having a very big impact on battery storage. Great example would be if you go into any major big box store today or hardware store, virtually every portable power tool you're picking up more and more moving away from NiCad into lithium. And so lithium ion has this ability to get into a market and greatly expand the user base overall.
Wonderful, very exciting stuff. And there is definitely a lot going on in solar storage. So in fact, I get announcements of new storage technologies in my inbox almost every week.
Yes.
So what characteristics does the ideal solar storage solution have? What is everyone really, what characteristics of a storage technology are people looking for?
So that is a really insightful question. And it's very good question because it really goes to the core of how the battery storage business will develop and ultimately where it will go. So if we take the business in total, we know that there's the ability to use solar and batteries in the event of a blackout, a big power outage. Witness the extreme weather up in the Northeast. In between Sandy, you had Irene, then you have more intense cold, the polar vortex. That stuff's very, very damaging on utility infrastructure.
Sure.
So clearly in the Northeast, and in many parts of the country, in the Midwest part of the country, even out here in California, there is battery storage designed for emergency backup power is an emerging market for those people in the marketplace that either cannot or will not use generators. So there's just a lot of people that either have restrictions, homeowners associations, I don't really have the space, my neighbors don't like the noise, all that kind of thing, where they just can't use a generator for backup power, whether it's a portable or it's a whole house. And then there's a lot of other people that just don't like the risks associated with generators. Everything from storing fuel on their property to the noise factor, as I had mentioned, to theft of equipment. You put a generator out there, somebody may steal it. And of course, the number one concern, carbon monoxide poisoning, which is a silent killer. I think according to the federal government, roughly about 150, 160 people die in the United States each year from carbon monoxide poisoning, and about 70%, 2/3 of that number, is from using generators improperly.
Oh.
So that's one face of the market. Then there's another face of the market, which would be in what we would refer to as demand response or demand mitigation. So California, where we are today, you have high density populations, you have a lot of aging infrastructure, we have more heat, not less heat. Doesn't matter what the cause is, we're all experiencing it now. And so the utilities are scrambling to keep up. On any given day, they might have enough power or they may not. If they don't have enough power, they have to go out and buy on the open markets, where wholesale pricing of electricity becomes very, very expensive as utilities compete for extra power to meet their margins. So now, in states like California, Texas, in the New York State market, parts of New Jersey, eastern Massachusetts, the utilities are saying, you know, we're not going to be able to keep building infrastructure on and on and on, have it exposed to really damaging weather where we have to go back out and rebuild it, and do all that without being able to continually raise the price to the customer, to the end user. So there's now a growing business model throughout the United States where utilities working with regulators are starting to say, we need to rethink this. We need to get more power from the market side. And this has now opened up another business opportunity for solar, again for energy efficiency, most importantly for battery storage, where you could enter into an agreement with an electric utility that you'll not use their power for 3 or 4 hours a day for 5 months out of the height of the cooling cycle, and they'll pay you incentives to do that rather than to have to go out and continually build and build more infrastructure. So your question is a good one. It's a very complicated one, and one that the industry players are struggling with, because in effect they're saying, which of these markets am I going to address? There's also energy arbitrage, which is another variation. There's grid services. So we have some models that are here today. Backup power is one. We have some regional models in demand response, and we have energy arbitrage and auxiliary grid services. These are the models that are coming forward in the future.
So the storage technology that is successful in different solar applications, it really depends on the application. Are you using it emergency backup? Are you using it for market supply for utilities? So good job breaking that down. That was,
it's good. It took me a while to understand it. So
I know that was a tough question.
Yeah,
so
no, but it just very quickly. So what we're finding as an industry is the battery chemistries are telling us where we need to go.
Yeah.
So many people say lead acid is dead. It's an old technology, it can't do this, it can't do that. But you know, lead is the ultimate best recyclable material in most major developed economies. You can take virtually 100% of lead and you can just put it in a smelter and you can use that product over and over and over again. Its other characteristic is power outage is an issue, but it's not like we're losing power every single day.
Right.
So if people have a couple power outages a year, that's a lot of power outage for them, but not for lead acid battery chemistry. It can handle a couple of cycles, it can stay on float. So if we look at its ability for what it can do in moving a large amount of power, pretty much on demand in limited cycles, it's a really good fit for emergency power. Again, for people who either cannot or will not use generators. Lithium ion, on the other hand, much higher multiple cycle use. There's a cost differential, but cost dynamics are changing. But generally for demand response, for things like energy arbitrage, where the cycles are higher in the course of the year, that's where we get the pathing for lithium ion battery chemistry.
Very good. It'll be interesting to see where each of those technologies, evolves.
You're going to see both. Anyone who's saying lead is dead, I think it's not going to be the place. These are very well established battery chemistries. There are others. There's NiCad, nickel cadmium technology. There's some pretty exotic stuff out there. There's molten batteries. There's flywheel batteries. All that stuff plays a role. But I think some of these battery chemistries, like lead, which is we'll find in all our cars, right? I think lead, lithium ion, they're going to kind of be the big players in the market overall.
So on that note about kind of talking about the future and what's to come, what's your take on where the solar storage industry is now and where it will go? I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what else do you see, that we're kind of approaching now, and what can we expect even in the near future?
So I see, this is my professional opinion, if you will, in having worked in the industry and working with my clients, I basically compare in my mind the battery storage business today really where the solar business was about 15 to 20 years ago. You know, costs were high on a per watt basis. Installation was not standardized. A lot of it was not recognized by National Electric Code. Even UL didn't always have readily available categories to apply to. Again, this was in the past. And so the solar industry, the solar array portion of the business, the costs have come down. Standardization is now the norm. National Electric Code is adhered to. UL is adhered to. And so I think that's why we're seeing in certain markets a continued quiet but very strong revolution for more and more solar installs. So, but if we also go back and we talk about things about lack of standardization, there was also a big rift between, you know, a polycrystalline and a monocrystalline module, as opposed to thin film. Thin film solar was going to be the hero. I got to use a lot less of it, therefore I can defeat this cost issue. Didn't work out that way. I would say, and I'm sure there's some people in the industry who would disagree with me, and they could be right. They could have information I don't have, but I would say the tale of the tape has been that monocrystalline and polycrystalline silicon modules from the big players have really become the norm for the industry, and the thin film has faded out. Likewise, I think we're seeing some similar dynamics in the battery storage business today. Kind of the new kid on the block. There's not a lot of standardization yet. Okay, UL is literally changing its categories. It's now coming up with an all-inclusive listing for a battery storage system. Before, it was just the battery or just the inverter. There is some technology disruption going on in the inverter business between transformer-based inverters, which are very good and very durable, but very heavy and very costly, now compared to transformerless inverters, where you can get more things done with power electronics as opposed to basically a copper coil. That makes units smaller, it makes them run cooler, it makes them easier to incorporate into battery storage. So I see a lot of parallels from a standpoint of what occurred in the solar industry 15 to 20 years ago, kind of coming together, getting more efficient. I see the same thing happening in battery storage as well. And I think we're kind of at today, if we're in 2015, where manufacturers are trying to figure out which swim lane am I going to get into? Am I going to be purely an emergency backup power player for the residential market? Am I going to go after commercial demand response? If so, what am I going to play in? Am I going to do 50 kW to 300 kW? Am I going to be a utility scale player? And there's some additional variations. I think the manufacturers in storage are slowly going to figure out where they want to go going forward.
Wonderful. Well, you explained that very well, and we appreciate all that insight since you have been in the solar industry long enough to see the trends that have occurred in the past and then apply that to the future. So I think that wraps up this edition of Solar Speaks Live at Intersolar North America. So Bob, thank you so much again for being with us. We really appreciate your insight.
Great, and Kathie, thank you very much for having me, and we really respect your publication, and we look forward to working with you again in the future.
Thank you so much, absolutely. And I do want to be sure to tell everyone to stop by throughout the show to see more interviews with solar experts. So thanks so much, everyone.